Good day, everyone. So, I come from a family that still believes that storytelling is a form of history. And my dad loved storytelling to the point where when I was young and it was the first time I caught him lying, and just to give you context, there were never any novels in the house. I've never heard of a novel. And I was like, Dad, why did you lie to that person? He's like, hey, have you never heard of friction? I was like, fiction? Yeah, read in between the lies. So on that note, and also with the ideology that I believe that we are all a combination of the events that have happened in our lives, today I'll be telling you a few stories, and those stories will be surrounded with the lives of people living with disabilities, but hopefully I'm able to share bigger strategies in terms of what we can take away from my life and my stories. And the first is the misconception of personal development. A lot of us believe that personal development is something that's individualistic, it's something that only happens internally, and it doesn't affect anything externally. But if we were to look at personal development as what I'd like to call strategic resilience, and this is the structure of an atom, for those of you who don't know, where we form the pathways of the nucleus. The protons and neutrons are our families, and then all the different electron orbitals are things like the pathways societies shows us, the way in which we see ourselves through the lives of others, and many more. And the other overarching idea, or maybe an outright statement that I'd like to, for everyone to go away with today, is that we as a society are in a much better place to support those that have been shown little to no support. We have the highest average economic value per person. We've managed to halve poverty over the last 30 years, and those will be some of the stories. And my stories may seem like an attack, and from the wise words of my mentor, who actually told me this the other day, is accountability feels like an attack when you're not ready to acknowledge your own toxic behavior. So I'll leave you with that today. So the first question I want to ask everyone, and I'd like everyone to stand up and really be accountable to the answers that they're going to take on the three questions that I'm going to ask. And if you can physically stand up, do so. If it means to kikeliza, for those of you who know what that means, or to snap your fingers, whatever it may be. And the first question is, how many of us here have problems, issues, or something that could be better in our lives? My second question is, if I were to say that the most marginalized group in the world are people living with disabilities, how many of you would disagree? And how many of us care that this is true for 80 million lives living here in Africa? And that is a size bigger than the population of the UK, bigger than the population of Southern Africa. How many of us actually care? So on that note, I'm glad to know that I can hold almost everyone accountable in the room. And the first story I'm going to share with you guys today is a story involving the protagonist of my childhood, my mother. And it came from a place where, when I was born, the family realized that I had a disability. And while the families were busy discussing who had the black magic that had caused this possessed demon to come out of my mother, she decided to define my future through my name. So my mother called me Mpumelelo. And after translated to Zulu, isiZulu, that is the meaning of success. And you know, this decision didn't come lightly because a lot of people thought my mom had a warped sense of humor. So to call this kid that was born out of amniotic band syndromes and further complications in the first 3 months, having to go under the knife, and doctors telling him that he's going to live an immobile life, yet here you say that this is what success looks like. And that's my first story to you today. The second story I'm going to share with you is inspired by the words of Helen Keller, and her words were, "The world is full of suffering, but so too is the world full of overcoming it." And with that in mind, the protagonist of my childhood decided that she was going to send me, a disabled kid that had been in and out of hospitals for 5 years, couldn't walk, didn't talk, and always sat in the corner, to mainstream suburban primary school. Well, first of all, I don't know how she thought she could afford it. And secondly, how did she think that I would survive the bullying and actually handle the pressure of mainstream suburban primary school? And it is a question that I've asked my mom over the years, and she always ends with a remark. And that remark is always, when you give people with disabilities opportunities, just like the law of vacuum, they grow to fill that available space. The second story I'm going to share with you is a moment which is the first day of primary school. Now that she had mustered the courage to pay for 2 months worth of primary school, and that's all she could do for me, everything else was up to me, so I had to live up to the standards. And as I got into primary school, it felt like foreign territory, because it was the first time I ever realized the cruelty or honesty, depending on where you stand, that children may have. So I get into school, kids are being ripped off their parents' arms, walk into class, a kid within the first 20 minutes has soiled their pants, yet my disability damned me the freak of the year. And as the lessons went on, we had lunch break, and the lunchtime bullies decided that they're going to spread the rumor that what I have is contagious. So just like sheep without a shepherd, all the kids scattered away. So in those moments, I had many thoughts, I had many words, and tear-eyed, snotty-nosed, with my congenital gangster limp, as many of you would have noticed when I walked in, I walked off to class where I found my teacher, explained to her what had happened and my course of action thereafter. So she hugged me, reassured me, and told me that she wants this addressed, and she loves the fact that I would be the person who would be able to address it. So as the kids filed in one line, they were asked to make a circle around me. And as they made the circle around me, I stood up and I said the following words. I said, "My name is Mpumelelo Mhlongo. I was born with a condition that led me to go in and out of hospital for many years. What I have is a gift from God, and what I can promise you is this: whatever you say will not affect me, because I grew up with Ukoko, which is my great-grand, who used to call me chickenfoot and deny me porridge when nobody else was looking, because she said I disgusted her." So the only thing that I want you to take out of this today is that don't feel sorry for me. What I have is something that you can't get, and it's something that all my family members have tried to get, because apparently it gave me more brain cells than others. And for as long as you get to know me, you'll realize that I make more weird faces than I have weird hands or feet. And just as that happened, I realized something. And in that moment, I realized the value of suffering. I realized that we all have insecurities. It just so happened that I wear mine externally. And that was maybe my second layer of electron orbital layer, where the way in which those children embraced me that day led to me being able to sit here before you today and tell you that story in a way of triumph, in a way of success, in a way of how other people can also affect your lives, where it's not negative, but it's actually positive. And the fourth story I'm going to share with you today is something that happened at the end of 2016. It was my honors year. I'd been selected to represent the country in the Rio Paralympic Games, 159 nations, 4,000 odd athletes. And this was the same year that I was obviously completing my undergrad in chemical engineering. And it was a year where, for the first time in my life, I was extremely proud regardless of what anyone thought. And in this year, what I can take out of it is that it really showed me that when we're able to access presence in the culture, you're able to shape the lives of everyone else because your cup is overflowing. And as all of you stood up when you said you are someone who cares, that is all I'm asking of you today. I'm asking of you to realize that we are all born with an abundance of something. If that is care, if that's love, if some of you it's resources, come talk to me later. But in that, when we allow our cups to overflow and we channel that energy to help the most marginalized group in the world, we remove obstacles, and all that is left is inhibitions. And then that is left to the individual. And people like myself and many others do step up to that plate, but it only comes from society allowing you that space. And without that, it's a lot more obstacles than is necessary. So my accountability to everyone today is I actually expect everyone in this room, since everyone did stand up, to choose a disability that you've heard of, that you've come across, one that you've researched because you never realized there were disabilities out there, and really make an effort to challenge yourself to raise awareness for it. And in the audience, I have my friend Megan Morkel, who will be running the Cape Town Marathon in September in the name of someone who cares. And I'm not expecting anyone to go out of the way, but just as I've been called to action today, I will be taking my journey to Tokyo to raise awareness for those who are living with disabilities, and that will be in the name of someone who cares. Thank you.